Hello everybody, welcome to F1 Grandstand. I'm Tony Craig, and if you are an F1 fan, you are in the right place. Hit the like and subscribe button, join the community and get involved. So, today's show is all about Ferrari. Sex, lies and videotape, except without the sex and videotape. But we do have a George Russell, so stick around, this is a good one. So Leclerc, P1 in qualifying. Great race pace for 40 laps, comfortably out in P1, looking perfect for a podium. And then after his second pit stop, his car was 2 seconds a lap slower until the end of the race, ultimately finishing P4, losing the podium to George Russell. Now, no racing incidents, touches or spins. So what was going on with Leclerc's Ferrari? I know. Let's bring in George. So, after the race, George spoke to Sky. And this is what he said. George Russell reckons it's because the car was close to being illegal in terms of plank wear. He said, I saw how slow he was, so I presumed something was not right. He's not going to tell you that they're close to being illegal. The only thing we can think of is that they were running the car too low to the ground and they had to increase the tyre pressure for the last stint. Now, that's not just George saying that. That's literally his entire Mercedes garage. All of those eggheads together came up with that conclusion. Now, Ferrari have already been disqualified once this season for excessive plank wear after Lewis Hamilton's SF25's plank was found to be less than the mandated 9mm thickness during the post-race inspection after the Canadian Grand Prix. But hang on, wasn't the new rear suspension upgrade supposed to solve that though? So, what did Fred Vasseur have to say on the matter? After the race, this is what he said. The first 2 stints of Charles were under control. The first especially was very good. Charles pulling out a gap over the McLarens and Russell. He came under a bit more pressure in the second stint, and then in the final one, we were losing 2 seconds a lap, said Vasseur. Now, we need to understand what happened to the chassis that made the car so hard for Charles to drive. At least, we got the points for 4th place because there was even some doubt that Charles could finish the race. Chassis? Hang on, Fred. Let's just look at what Leclerc said during the race. So, during the race, Leclerc said on the radio to his engineer, "This is so incredibly frustrating. We've lost all competitiveness. You just have to listen to me. I would have found a different way of managing those issues. Now it's just undrivable. Undrivable. It's a miracle if we finish on the podium." Okay. Doesn't that sound like he thinks he knows what it is? It doesn't really sound like it's a chassis issue. It sounds like he thinks he knows exactly what they've done and he could have managed it himself from the driving seat. Now, if all of that isn't weird enough, we've got Hamilton dropping cryptic clues as well. So after the race, Hamilton was asked about his post-qualifying comments after Sunday's Grand Prix about, why he felt they should change the driver. And the Brit said, "When you have a feeling, you have a feeling. There's just a lot going on in the background and that it's not great. So I'm sure there are positives to take from the weekend and I'm sure there's learnings." A lot going on in the background? What is he talking about? I know. The fact that Ferrari are running a barely legal car, so barely legal I heard Bonnie Blue wanted to fuck it. And it gets weirder. So Leclerc then, after the race, does a full 180 on his race comments. He said it was actually an issue coming from the chassis and nothing that we could have done differently. I started to feel the issue on lap 40 or something like that. And then it got worse, lap after lap after lap. And toward the end of the race, we were 2 seconds off the pace and the car was just undrivable. I don't know yet how it was caused, but we'll look into it. I think it was quite tricky. Otherwise, I probably would have known and they would have told me. But yeah, apparently it wasn't as obvious on data. However, now you can definitely confirm that there was a problem. There was an issue and it was an outlier. It shouldn't ever happen again. I mean, I'm still very disappointed. We had one opportunity this year to win a race, which I think was this weekend. The first stint was perfect. The first laps of the second stint were really good as well. So, okay. So that's what Leclerc had to say. Immediately I'm thinking, who got to you, buddy? Have you been told to toe the company line? Or you may wake up to a horse's head in your bed? Okay, that is pure speculation, but it is Ferrari. But I mean, all of that together, look at it. We've got George probably bang on the money. And what I didn't mention is it wasn't just about the plank wear. George also said that he believed that Ferrari had toned down the engine setting, so when the Ferrari was hitting the end of the straight, it was not hitting full tilt, which meant they weren't getting maximum downforce, which meant the car was slower, which meant the car wasn't skimming on the ground, wearing down the plank, right? So not only did they increase the tyre pressures, which made the car handle like a bag of spanners, they lost grip, but they also turned the engine down, which is why I go back to what Leclerc said, which he said, I could have managed it from the car. He didn't want them to turn the engine down, and he probably didn't want them to change the tyre pressures either, because he felt from the cockpit, he could change the way he drove the car to reduce the amount of plank wear, and he still would have been quicker than the 2 seconds a lap he lost from lap 40 to lap 70. But the weirdest thing of all of it is that then they come out with this story. Ferrari then make up a load of lies because they don't want everyone to know what they already know. We all know. George let the cat out of the bag. But what do you think? What do you think's going on at Ferrari? Not to mention Lewis's worst day ever. You know, worst weekend you've ever seen. Like, we want to see more from our Ferrari. And we want to see, look, if you've done this upgrade of the new rear suspension, you told everybody it's going to solve the ride height issue, obviously hasn't. You told everybody it's going to make the car quicker, which on paper, Leclerc did put that car P1 in qualifying. But what if it's all smoke and mirrors? What if the only reason is because they're running some barely legal ride height, so it's good for one lap or a few laps, but it's never going to get through an entire race? They haven't solved their plank wear issue and their ride height issue. And what's even worse is there are no new Ferrari upgrades coming between now and the end of the season. So when you've got Hamilton absolutely in tatters, what happens? What happens when they come back after the break? I mean, what can they possibly do to that Ferrari? Are they even going to bother? Because, there's 10 races left. Everybody's focused on the 2026 car. So what's this going to do to Hamilton? Like, he's got 10 races left to drive in a car that isn't working. 0 upgrades coming. Ferrari telling porcupines about the performance of their car and just using, let's be kind, using gamesmanship to try and get the maximum performance out of the car, which I guess they're entitled to do. They're entitled to interpret the rules however they want to. You've got to try and find an edge. But when you look at it all, it just looks like a freaking shambles, doesn't it? Ferrari just don't look good. But you still can't take away the fact that Leclerc put the Ferrari P1 and Hamilton put the Ferrari on P12 and finished P12 and Leclerc finished P4. But there's a lot to get into. Get into the chat. I would love to know what you think. Hi, Gemma. Nice to see you in the chat. The conspiracy. Yeah, it is a conspiracy because it's a political game. Like, if you're Ferrari, you don't want your number one driver, Leclerc, saying on the radio for the whole world to hear, giving all that evidence that he knew what they were doing and it wasn't cricket. And now everyone knows. But I think what makes it worse is that they then tried to sell us this chassis. There was something wrong with the chassis. And then Leclerc, because he knows there's nothing wrong with the chassis, he says in his statement, I think it was an outlier. And what he meant by that was, it's a one-off. We're not going to see this problem again with the chassis. Yeah, because it wasn't the fucking chassis, was it? That's why you know we're not going to see that problem again. And all the evidence points to a complete farce. Gemma's got a question in the chat. Get in the chat, everyone. I want to know what you think about this. I'm sure you're watching the same race that I was watching. Not only was it boring as hell, this was the only drama that we got from the Hungarian Grand Prix. So, Gemma's asking about my man on the ground. So I've got a man on the ground. If you just joined us, welcome to F1 Grandstand. It's lovely to have you here. So, yeah, I've got a man on the ground. It's called Tubby George. He gets the inside knowledge down out of the paddock. Tubby George, he called me and he was just laughing. He was like, yeah, George Russell was absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Increased tyre pressures, turned down the engine. It was a plank wear problem and they would have been ruled illegal and got nil points. And they were so scared of getting no points that they would rather sacrifice Leclerc's podium than risk riding at an illegal ride height when the car went into parc fermé. So yeah, it cost him 2 seconds a lap for 20 laps. That's freaking insane. When you're setting the pace and you're leading the race and putting air between you and the McLarens. I mean, Leclerc was driving well with what he had underneath him, no doubt. But Ferrari's engineers, and you've got to say, if Fred Vasseur, you are the team principal, you knew what was going on. You know what's going on. You know what your team's doing. And then to suddenly pluck out the thin air, it was a chassis problem. We've never heard of a chassis problem this season with that Ferrari. Never. But the thing is about the tyre pressure thing is because the interesting thing about Formula One is all of the different teams' data is shared. You can see the data from other teams. The one thing you can't see in real time is the tyre pressures that go on the Ferrari. The only people that would see the tyre pressures would be Pirelli, the tyre manufacturer. But the other teams wouldn't necessarily get to see that. So Mercedes deducing what the heck went on and what they were doing, they were absolutely right. They were absolutely right. And for Charles Leclerc to know, and he can say that we won't see that problem again, the chassis problem, is because he knows there's nothing wrong with the chassis. So the bigger question that I'd love you to get in the chat and answer is, where do Ferrari go from here? I mean, this season is a bit of a write-off, and with over 300 points behind McLaren, they can sandbag till the end of the season and get second in the constructors. They are not going to get. They cannot win the manufacturers, can they? They can't. They cannot get the constructors title. So they've just got to put their drivers in the car, which isn't good enough. There's no upgrades. And I think Leclerc will be all right because he's still the number one driver. He's still outperforming Hamilton every single race. But what is it going to do to Hamilton being in that car for the next 10 races? Did you see him at the end of the Grand Prix? He was absolutely dejected. He looked suicidal. He said, replace the driver when asked what they can do to improve the car's performance. He said, yeah, change the driver. We've got a car on P1. It's me. I'm the problem. He's going to be in the same spot for the next 10 races. So when we get into 2026, this is a 7-time world champion who is going to be broken by this car unless they can do something that makes it more drivable for him. Because right now he thinks it's him. Right now he's totally blaming himself. And he's probably right to do so. But he's had no involvement in the development of the SF25. He is getting involved in the development of the 26 car. And don't forget, the 26 car, we're talking about a whole new technical era in Formula One. It's a brand new platform. Everything changes. And every time we get a brand new platform in F1, we don't know which car is going to be the best car, right? It basically levels out the field again. We might see a Williams up there. We will definitely see an Aston Martin up there with Adrian Newey designing the car. Aston Martin might be the number one team next year. In fact, that'd be my outside bet if I'm honest. So, but that doesn't take away that Hamilton's got 10 more races in this Ferrari. And he's got a team at Ferrari which are, obviously, they're not all congruent. Great word. They're not all, it's not a cohesive team, is it? You know, you've got Hamilton sort of really being quite demanding of the engineers to improve the car. You've got Leclerc, who's been honest in the race when the emotions fly and he knows what's going on. But then after the race, you know, he's been told, listen, this is what you need to say. Fred said it's a chassis issue. Don't feed into the story that George Russell has already put out there. Don't feed into that narrative. We have to create a whole new narrative now. Flimsy though, isn't it? Weak. But Leclerc does as he's told, right? Like I said, it's Ferrari. He never knows if he's going to wake up with a horse's head in his bed. If he doesn't do as he's told, who knows? But yeah, that's what it is. You know, so Ferrari are all over the place. But Fred Vasseur has just got a longer contract as team boss at Ferrari, hoping that's going to steady the ship. But it's a mess. Gemma likes my phrase, a bag of spanners. Yeah, when a car handles badly, I like to use the phrase, it handles like a bag of spanners. But you can use any phrase that you want. Any phrase that you want. Yeah, so I don't know how Ferrari are going to, you know, be running these, how they're going to solve this ride height problem. I don't know what races they look like. They're going to score points, obviously. But can they win any races this year? I doubt it. I don't think so. McLaren looked absolutely unbeatable. George Russell, though, getting the most out of that Mercedes. But I don't think the Mercedes... But here's the one thing Ferrari have got going for them. I don't think Mercedes are going to improve the car significantly now. They've got no significant upgrades coming. I don't think McLaren are going to improve their car. But they don't need to. They are so far ahead. That car is head and shoulders above everyone else in the field. Ferrari are not going to improve their car significantly. They've not got any major upgrades. The only car that really I can see looks like it's going to improve is the Aston Martin, because you could see how good they were this in Hungary. You had Fernando Alonso, who was my driver of the day, finishing P5, qualifying P5. Lance Stroll qualifying P6. And also scoring points. I think he finished where did he finish? P7. So the Aston Martins have definitely improved. We may see some improvement from Williams. But at the top, McLaren, Ferrari and Mercedes are going to be exactly where they are now. I don't think anything's going to change. So the big thing is, and Red Bull, by the way. I mean, I've not mentioned Red Bull because I can't see Red Bull improving either. And I don't. And if you listen to Max after the race in Hungary, he doesn't think that car's going to get any better either. And Laurent Mekies sort of told him off for being negative, because Laurent Mekies said, "Oh no, we can still find some performance this season. We can still win a race." And it's almost like Max Verstappen's going, "Huh? Nah, I don't think so." He's just telling the truth. So I think that those teams are going to be status quo. I don't think we're going to see any significant improvement. So we're still going to see the Racing Bulls really scoring more points every Grand Prix than the Red Bull team, actually, I think. I mean, the Racing Bulls are looking decent for points because now Liam Lawson seems to have found his groove. Outperforming Hadjar for the last 3 races, and Hadjar's been on fire this season. Rookie of the season, in my opinion. Been absolutely brilliant. So yeah, it's Ferrari, going back to the actual point, do not look good. They don't look good. I can't see an improvement. If the only way they can get their car to be competitive in race pace is to run a sort of barely legal ride height that would never be sustained for the entire race, well, that's no good, is it? And then do the last third of the race, losing 2 seconds a lap, you may as well be driving with a puncher. It's insanity. But I'd love to know your thoughts. Like I said, you know, Ferrari ran that car. It was so barely legal, even Bonnie Blue tried to bang it. Terrible. Terrible. So I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know what Ferrari are going to do. It's wild. It's a mess. Hamilton in disarray. Get in the chat. Tell me what you think. Here's a question. I'm going to ask you a very simple question. Whoever's watching in the chat right now, do you think Hamilton will win a world championship in a Ferrari? Yes or no? I want to know whether you think Hamilton can re-find his incredible form that he's shown over the years. And can he do it in a Ferrari with the team around him? Because we do know one thing about Ferrari is they will do anything to win. And they'll also do anything to protect their brand, right? Brand Ferrari. It's not just a racing team. It's like a nationalized team. It's like Italy, the country, own that team, and the entire country is behind that team. It's the pride in Ferrari is huge. I've never seen anything like it. Never seen anything like it from a fan base. So can Hamilton win the world championship in a Ferrari? Gemma says no. That's very negative, Gemma. I want to believe that Hamilton can. I want to believe that Lewis Hamilton can win his 8th world championship in a Ferrari. I want the romance of it. I do. I'd love, Lewis Hamilton to win 8 world championships. The thing about Lewis Hamilton, though, is I think out of all the drivers, especially the British drivers that we've had, even though he is the greatest, he's won more world championships than any of them, is he the most loved? I mean, you can go back to drivers like Graham Hill, Jackie Stewart. I mean, I know he's Scottish, but British. Sterling Moss, Nigel Mansell, Damon Hill. I mean, Damon Hill, was he popular? I like Damon Hill. He wasn't the best driver on the grid, but he did drive the best car, which happened to be an Adrian Newey car, by the way, at Williams, and winning a world championship. But Hamilton doesn't seem to have as much love as other British drivers. Why is that? I don't know. There's something about him that people don't love as much, I don't think, as somebody. I really like Lewis Hamilton. You can't deny his talent. So yeah, I'm rooting for him. Oh yeah, sorry, Gemma. Yeah, Jenson Button. Jenson Button was popular to a point. He had an amazingly smooth driving style. And I think one world championship for Jenson Button was his ceiling, if I'm honest. I think the fact that he won one in a Ross Brawn car, I think the car flattered him, if I'm honest. He was pretty good in a McLaren, but he had one world championship in him, maybe. That's what I think. That's just what I think. But yeah, Lewis Hamilton, I want him to come back. I want him to come back after this break, and I want him to come back fighting. I want him to come back positive. And the first thing he needs to do is beat his teammate. He needs to get in front of Leclerc. Simple, isn't it? Right? Beat your teammate. Number one rule. And I think what I don't want to see him do is let all of the negative thoughts creep in, because we know that Ferrari, there's something going on. There's not just something going on with the car. There's something going on with the engineers. There's something going on with the PR. They're playing games. It's almost like they wanted to, that they were happier They were happiest to sort of run the car at an illegal ride height to show they had pace. And they knew they were going to have to do this. This is what I don't understand. The engineers must have known after lap 1 or 2 of running the setup they were running out in P1, Leclerc in front, they would have got the data. They would have known within 2 or 3 laps that, oh shit, the way we got this car set up, that the wear on that plank is going to be illegal by the end of the race. They must have known. And Leclerc knew that they knew that, which was why Leclerc said in his conversation with the engineer during the race, I could have managed it. Why did you change the setup or the settings of the engine? I could have managed it from here. Why did you increase the tyre pressures? I could have managed it from here. And he wasn't given the chance, was he? He wasn't given the option. If they'd have said to him, listen, we are the plank wear is too much. We can tell in the first 4 laps. We know you're out in front. Let the boy drive. Let the boy manage it. But when he gets to lap 40 and it's his second pit stop, comes in P1, looking solid for a podium, it ends up P4 because you made the decision. You took the decision away from him. Now that can only be that it was too late. It can only be that the ride height was already, it was too late. So they had no choice. So the plank wear was already at the legal limit. So they had no choice. So that means a decision needed to be made a lot earlier in the Grand Prix. So did you tell Leclerc to alter the way he drove the car? Because the main plank wear at the Hungaroring happens at the end of the main straight, which makes sense, right? Because it's maximum downforce. You are going full tilt. Maximum speed means maximum downforce, which means maximum grounding out on the floor, which means maximum plank wear, which is why they had to turn the top end down on the engine, which is why Russell went past Leclerc so easily. And which is why Leclerc, when he knew he didn't have the power at the top end, that when Russell was putting the overtake manoeuvre on turn 1, Leclerc had positioned himself to come in for the apex of the corner to take the line. He was so slow that Russell was right up on the inside, and Russell said he is cutting me up under braking, which is actually a violation, right? Which is why he got a 5-second penalty at the end of the Grand Prix. But what Leclerc would argue is like, no, I wasn't even braking. I wasn't going fast enough. I wasn't under braking when I took that track position because he wasn't hitting his top end because they had turned down the engine because of the plank wear. So when you factor all this in, if I'm Charles Leclerc, I am furious right now, right? I am livid. I'm livid that you didn't give me the chance to manage the car from the cockpit. I'm absolutely livid that I didn't, that when at the end of the race you make me tell a story about a problem with a chassis. It's outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. Yeah, I honestly think that Leclerc had every right to be furious. And when you're a driver, and I'm guessing Leclerc's on, what are we guessing, 30 mil a year. When Ferrari tell you at the end of the race, do not feed in to the narrative about the increased tyre pressures. Do not feed in to the narrative that we turned down the engine. This is the corporate line. The chassis. So you can tell he's done that. They said that to him because you can tell the clues in how he responded after the race. He basically was almost apologetic. Said, yeah, with the data, it was hard to tell. The chassis was the problem. The chassis. I mean, I'll tell you, this is what he said exactly. It was actually an issue coming from the chassis and nothing that we could have done differently. I started to feel the issue in lap 40 or something like that, and then it got worse lap after lap after lap. And towards the end, we were 2 seconds off the pace, and the car was just undrivable. On that, by the way, it wasn't towards the end you were 2 seconds a lap off the pace. It was as soon as you came out of the pits after your second pit stop, you were immediately 2 seconds a lap off the pace. So you saying it got worse and worse is a bit of a stretch, buddy. You were 2 seconds a lap off the pace as soon as you came out. And then he goes on to say, I don't know yet how it was caused, but we'll look into it. I think it was quite tricky. Otherwise, I probably would have known and they would have told me. But yeah, apparently it wasn't as obvious on the data. However, now you can definitely confirm that there was a problem. But this is the bit that's telling. He then says, this was an issue and it was an outlier. Now, what does he mean by an outlier? He means this is an issue we will never see again. It's a freak issue that we will never see again. And he even says it shouldn't ever happen again. I mean, I'm still very disappointed. We had one opportunity this year to win a race, which I think was this weekend. The first stint was perfect. The first laps of the second stint was really good as well. So, you know, he's told us everything in that statement. He has told us that this chassis story, the fact they pulled a chassis story out of the air, right, from nowhere, and he's then said, okay, it's a chassis, but he also knows that this chassis story, this is immediately after the race, by the way, that this chassis problem could never, ever, ever happen again. How can you know that? The only way you know that this chassis problem could never ever happen again is because you know it was not the freaking chassis. Because you know George Russell was on the money. You know you increased the tyre pressures. You know the engineers turned down the engine performance. And you know it was because you were running an illegal ride height and you were getting to the point where the plank wear was going to be less than 9 mil. But you only found that out, Charles, probably after your second pit stop, which is why you are furious. If they'd have told you that early on in the race, from the data they were getting by lap 5, you would have had the chance to have managed that car from the cockpit. And that's why you're furious. And that's the truth. So that's why the thumbnail says Ferrari lies and Hamilton cries. Because it's true. These are the Ferrari lies. Don't buy it. George Russell telling the truth. And the knock-on effect now to Ferrari for the end of the season is going to be this. The new rear suspension upgrade has not done what it was designed to do. Ferrari got disqualified in China. Why? Because their plank wear was below or exceeded the legal limits of 9 mil. The new suspension was supposed to fix that. It has not. It was supposed to solve the ride height problem. It has not. It was also supposed to help in the slow speed corners and in the high speed corners. Well, it's only done that if you're running a barely legal or illegal ride height. So really, it has not done that because you are back to square one, like you're running the car you were as it was before the new rear suspension upgrade, where you've got to run the car like a floaty boat in order to be legal at the end of the race. So what does that mean for Ferrari? Well, it means they're going to be stagnant. It means that car is not going to be improved this season. We've got to watch the rest of the season with a Ferrari that is competitive with the rest of the field, but is not going to be competitive. Might be competitive. They might be able to string one lap together in qualifying like we saw Leclerc do at Hungary. But we know that that car on that setup will not finish the race. Legally will not finish the race. So, I don't know. Maybe the drivers can have an influence. Maybe now they've identified that they can run the car for better performance and at a risk of being disqualified because of plank wear. Maybe if they accept that to be the fact and the drivers accept that they can have a faster car, but they're at risk of being risk of disqualification because of the plank wear, maybe the drivers will believe from the cockpit they will be able to manage the car better than allowing the engineers to make the call to make that car 2 seconds a lap slower on the second pit stop. And I think we might see that. I think that could be their option. You know, we could see an increased performance in Ferrari. We could see more disqualifications, though, because of that same issue before the end of the season. But if I'm Hamilton or Leclerc, I would rather be competitive and have a chance at a podium or a chance of a win and see if I can manage that plank wear from how I drive the car myself and risk disqualification than be nowhere. Wouldn't you? Wouldn't you want a chance at least to try and affect a good performance? Because Hamilton needs a car that he can get some confidence in. Not just confidence in the car, to get some confidence back in himself. He's absolutely at rock bottom. I mean, what do you think? Get in the chat. And I see Gemma in the chat. It's a fairy tale. Yeah, Ferrari is a fairy tale. I know they all have to play these games, Gemma. They all have to play political games in F1. Nobody wants to reveal their hand to the other teams, right? I get it. But this is but to tell a downright lie and expect us, the fans, to buy it, come on. Like, and then to sell the lie, and then to reveal yourself that you're in the lie when you're talking about this mythical chassis problem, and then already tell us that, but it won't be a problem in the future. You haven't even had a chance to look at the car yet. You don't even know what it is. So you're telling me this mythical chassis problem that you've already analysed, no, we'll never see that again. No, it's because it's a lie. And you think we're all daft. We're not, you know, we're not all daft. I'm a little bit daft, but we're not all daft. So yeah, that is the full Ferrari story. It's a crazy one. And I'm sure we can all agree the Hungarian Grand Prix was an absolute snooze fest. I did a review show. I called it Snooze Fest in Budapest because, oh my God, I did a live stream throughout the whole Grand Prix, a watch along, which was great. And a lot of you joined in. It was really good fun. But the Grand Prix was like pulling teeth. It was dull. And we can't have that next season. Hopefully these new regulations, a new era of cars, is going to make the racing better. But let's be honest, the Hungaroring is the Poundland Monaco. You can't overtake. There's no glamour and there's no walls. But it's literally the same thing, just not as glamorous. No overtaking, qualifying matters, and most of the changes in the order on the track only come from pit strategy. Really, right? How many overtaking manoeuvres did we see in the Grand Prix? Can you remember? We saw Russell overtake Leclerc because he was running 2 seconds a lap slower. We saw Piastri in the last 2 laps try and overtake Lando Norris, and it wasn't really a again, there's only one place you could try and overtake, and it was at the bottom of the main straight, and coming into turn 1, late break. That's it. That's the only place you could possibly overtake on that track. And we saw Piastri have a go. Was never quick enough. He did lock up. It made it a little bit exciting in the last 2 laps, because the McLarens took each other out. But apart from that, it was freaking boring, wasn't it? Let me know what you think in the comments. Yeah, I don't think that the 2026 season cannot come quick enough for me. The new era of cars. I'm not a big fan of the electrification, to be honest. The hybrid systems going to a 50-50 split. They will all have over 1,000 horsepower. I'm not a big fan of that, to be honest. I like my engines without electrification, to be honest. But we can't halt progress. It's going to happen whether we like it or not. But it is going to be a new era. And we are going to see, I believe, next year a more competitive grid. We are going to see the Aston Martins doing well. We could see the Williams doing well. We're obviously going to see Mercedes, Red Bull. Well, Red Bull's an interesting one. Are we going to see a good solid Red Bull car? Adrian Newey is not designing that car anymore. We could see Red Bull in a whole world of trouble. They are developing an engine with Ford. We don't know how that's going to work out. That's all brand new. So you've got a Red Bull Ford powertrain going in the Red Bull and the Racing Bulls. I mean, It's not nailed on that Red Bull are going to be competitive next year. Now, because Adrian Newey's designing the Aston Martin, I think it's absolutely nailed on that Aston Martin are going to be competitive next year. McLaren will be competitive next year. Mercedes, of course, will be competitive next year. Red Bull will be in the mix, but it's definitely not guaranteed that they're going to be. They might have the best driver in the world my best driver on the planet right now. Doesn't mean they're going to get it doesn't mean he's going to get the car he needs. It's not nailed on. I'm telling you now. But let's hope 2026 is more exciting. And let's hope we can just get some excitement into the last 10 races. Let's hope we can get some vintage Hamilton. Let's hope we can get some, maybe some wet races if they don't stop that. Because at least then the lesser teams can have a chance at competing at the top. But anyway, that's me on my soapbox. Jump into the chat. Looking forward to seeing Cadillac on the grid and Audi next year. And I will still be around to give you your dose of Formula One news over this summer break. Anything that's breaking, anything that we find out, anything that my man on the ground, Tubby George, finds out, I will be sharing with you every evening live. And if you've got anything you want us to cover, don't forget, this is a community for all of us. I give my opinion, you give me yours, we share ideas, thoughts. That's what it's all about. It's a safe space for F1 fans to come and escape to every night and talk about it. That's what we're trying to do here. It's a community for you, so get involved. But yeah, that is my 2 cents worth on the Ferrari shenanigans. Thank you so much for watching F1 Grandstand. Please like, comment and subscribe. It makes a massive difference to the success of the channel and it is very, very much appreciated. I will be back tomorrow with more news. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you then. Ta-ta.